What's the creepiest or most unexplainable thing you've ever seen that you haven't shared anywhere? I was in bed at night, woken up by the sound of steps on my roof tiling. I think I was about 13 at the time. I see a shadow walk past my skylight, unsure of what it was. I look outside my side window and see a man dressed in all black looking out from the construction scaffolding. After a while he looks into my window and I try to hide. My brother also saw him. We never found out what happened to him, but the police were informed. A long time ago in primary elementary school, me and my friend came to the school compound on a Sunday to explore. We came in the wee hours in the morning, and coupled that it was a Sunday, there was nobody in. We were walking along a corridor on the first floor, when suddenly we heard this thunderous noise above us. You know the sound where you drag a chair or table across a floor? It was exactly that, but it sounded like there's multiple classrooms full of tables and chairs just moving around. It was loud. Very loud. And it was extremely sudden. There's no reason why anybody would be in school, moving dozens of tables and chairs on their own on a Sunday 6 a.m. We stood rooted, stared at each other for a second, and bolted. After we got out of school, he asked me whether I heard a lady screaming in the corridor. I said no. He didn't hear the dragging sounds either. I was 10 years old riding my bicycle at dusk along the road I lived on, which was parallel to a set of railroad tracks. I moved off the road as a car sped by, and a beer bottle came sailing at me from the front passenger seat. I could see two young women turned around laughing at me through the back window. I flipped them off and kept riding. About 30 seconds later, I heard the train slam into them. A number of years ago, I was using an online chat site and got talking to a woman who claimed to live around 50 miles from me. We chatted quite happily for a couple of days. Then on the third day, a Saturday night, she was online and we were chatting, but she seemed different somehow. Something just didn't seem right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. She explained that she was drinking, and I assumed that this was the reason behind the melancholy. We continued chatting and she put on a cam so I could see her there drinking as we chatted. Over a couple hours of chatting, her mood appeared to grow darker, and she appeared distressed, but was hesitant to elaborate further. She left and returned around 30 minutes later and appeared drunker and more distressed. This time she had a stack of tablets on the table in front of her. She claimed that she couldn't go on and started to take tablet after tablet. I had no idea what this medication was. She was continuing to take more and more tablets, and her speech was getting more and more slurred. I was suddenly in a terrible position. Was I seeing someone take their own life on a live stream and totally unable to do anything? All I had was a name and a town, both of which could be false. I made the excuse of needing the toilet and left the room, and took this opportunity to call my local police and explain the situation. The police took what details I knew, and I was told to go back and try and keep her talking and try and get further details from her. They sent a plainclothed officer to my house, and whilst I was chatting to her, he pulled up the chat logs and history on his laptop. By this time her speech was becoming more and more incoherent, and the cam was knocked so it was impossible to see her. Soon the connection was lost. Was this real? Was it fake? I had no idea of knowing. The police officer was during this time on the phone with the station, giving them what information he had been able to obtain. He then left, leaving me to contemplate. The next evening I got a call from the local police station, who wanted to thank me. The police had managed to trace her through her IP address, and had been able to attend. It apparently was a genuine suicide attempt, and she had been taken to hospital and was subsequently undergoing treatment. When I was 20, I visited a town in Italy that has a number of medieval towers that you can climb. My girlfriend didn't want to climb any, so I went up one on my own and was the only person at the time doing so. It was a sunny day when I entered the tower. There was a flight of stairs that wound around the edge of the tower and no windows. Climbing the tower took at the very most 5 minutes. At the top of the stairs there was a ladder and a trapdoor that opened up onto the roof of the tower. When I opened it, I found the weather had changed dramatically and was overcast and threatening. I forget if there was thunder or not, but I was genuinely concerned about lightning, being at the top of a tall tower in that weather. I cautiously climbed out onto the roof just to have a quick look before going straight down. The roof was surrounded with a sort of metal cage of bars that were clearly intended to prevent anyone jumping off the tower. I heard some thunder and saw electricity arc between some of the bars, not a blinding lightning strike, just arcing. I decided that the tower was imminently going to be struck and descended as quickly as I could. At the bottom I was surprised to find the weather was again sunny with a clear sky. My girlfriend could tell I was shaken, and was amazed when I told her I thought that maybe there had been lightning. The weather hadn't changed whilst I'd been up the tower. I've started to tell the story a couple of times, but it's just too weird to expect anyone to believe. I have literally no explanation. I'm very much a skeptic when it comes to the paranormal. I'm not religious, and I've had no other weird experiences like this. In short, I'm not your stereotypical spooky things happen to me kind of person. And yet. I used to live in a house with 2 roommates, let's call them Anna and Erica. I lived on the 2nd floor and Anna and Erica lived downstairs. Every night I would hear this thud coming from downstairs. I would investigate and it always came from Anna's room. I thought it was her doing burpees or working out at night, which seems dumb looking back. I never talked to Erica about it because I thought it was in my head, and since I was on the second floor, it never really bothered me. Fast forward 2 years and we all move into a new house with another roommate. Anna, Erica, and I live on the same floor upstairs. I start hearing the thud louder now. I go up to Anna's door and it sounds like she's hitting herself against a wall and whispering and crying or laughing. I also noticed when she left the room she had her sheets all scattered on the floor. I asked my other roommate Erica about it, and she says she hears it too. Anna starts staying at her parents' house more often, but every time she comes home we hear the same thud noise. We started asking Anna about it, and she makes up excuses like I was moving furniture, or my porch door was swinging open. After we started questioning her more, she only came to our house maybe once a month to pick up some clothes. It was so strange. I never think we'll get an explanation. When I was 5, me and my identical twin sister both caught scarlet fever. We are from America, but my dad's project had temporarily relocated us to India, and we were not used to the water and food there. We both fell into a coma towards the end of the fever. One day I woke up to my mom and aunt screaming and crying and holding my sister because she was unresponsive and not breathing. They were doing chest compressions, CPR, etc., but nothing was working. I was desperately trying to get their attention because I was young and didn't understand what was going on. I went back in my room to go back to sleep, but in the corner of the room where my sister's bed was, I saw her laying there, breathing fine. I went back out to the living room and realized I was looking at myself in my mom's arms as she tried to revive me. Eventually, I saw my eyes flicker open, and then everything went dark. I woke up a few weeks later in the hospital next to my sister and mom, who ended up catching it because of us. My mom told me I had almost died, and they were trying to wake me up, but I was unresponsive, so the ambulance took all 3 of us into the ICU. To this day, I am still unsure how I witnessed my almost death. Back when I was 9 or so, me and my friend were having a sleepover. His parents were at a dinner, and his brother was out getting stoned somewhere. Anyways, it was probably 9 p.m. His parents had just called and said that dinner had turned into drinks, and they would be out for a little while longer. Anyways, we were young, playing Minecraft on this Xbox 360, when we heard his front door open. It had a very noticeable noise when it opened, very creaky, almost eerie, so we thought, oh, it's probably just your brother, and kept playing, thinking nothing of it. Then, we heard footsteps on the floor above us. We once again thought nothing of it, seeing as his kitchen was above the basement where we were playing games, and his brother was likely there for mid-high munchies. But then, we heard another set of footsteps. We were confused at this point, but we didn't worry as it was either his parents or a stoner friend of his brother. We then heard a scratching at the basement door. We both looked at each other like, is it just me or is there a scratching? He didn't have any pets, so, me being the oldest by 2 months, went to go check. I opened the door and there was nothing there. I yelled upstairs to his brother, let's call him Jim. Jim, you're not scaring us. Stop it. No reply. So I sat back down and continued playing. Now, there was a scratching on the window. We were honestly terrified, and we stayed seated, one of us looking at the door, the other looking at the window. Then, again, scratching at the door. I opened it with a baseball bat in hand, and nothing. We barricaded the door, and put things in front of the window. We didn't hear anything for the next half an hour, and eventually fell asleep. The next morning his dad came down and knocked on the door, and tried to get into the basement. We took down the barricade, and his dad came into the room, furious. Why the hell did you guys rip open the screen door? We went upstairs and sure enough, the front door's screen was shredded. We tried to convince him that it wasn't us, and that the brother had done it to scare us. But what he said next made our blood run cold. Jim wasn't home at all last night. We dropped him off in the city with his friends. My friend's house was half an hour away from the city, and none of the people at his friend's house had cars. Me and my friend looked at each other, and couldn't speak. Needless to say, his parents didn't believe us. They called my parents, and me and my friend had to split the cost to have the basement door replaced. It had tons of scratch marks as well, and the screen door replaced. Me and my friend still bring this up to this day, whenever we meet. When I was about 11 or 12, I went with my friend and my younger brother to play football in a park that was in a pretty remote place, so there were never many people. Basically 3 or 4 people came dressed in like Victorian-style clothes, set up a box underneath a tree with big branches, tied a rope around it. One of them stood there with this noose around his neck, and then his friend kicked the box so he was hanging. They took turns doing this, and we left. It was super weird thinking back to it, and I have to check with my brother whenever I think about it to make sure it actually happened. I've told this story on here before. I used to live in really rural Texas, and was driving down FM, Farm to Market Road during some very thick fog. I was in an old pickup truck, and was going maybe 20 to 30 miles per hour, because I couldn't see very far ahead. Super glad I was. As I came around a turn, I saw through the fog this big hulking figure lurching across the road. I slowed down, pulled up near it to pass, and saw what was the biggest hog I've ever seen in my life. A good 400 pounds certainly. It was dead, probably destroyed whatever car hit it, and dragging it to the side of the road, an absolutely massive white shaggy dog. Y'all, this dog. I was in a pickup truck, and this dog made eye contact with me, lifted its head, and stared me level in the eye for what felt like an eternity. I stopped my truck and stared. I was so caught off guard. After probably a few seconds, felt like forever, it put its head back down, grabbed a chunk of hog, and continued making its way off the road. To break it down, this dog was smart enough to move the animal it wanted to eat, large and strong enough to drag a 400-ish pound hog across pavement, and tall enough to look me in the eye in a pickup. I will never forget those eyes. It had mud-stained white fur, a big black head, and a long wolfy tail. It looked almost like a Pyrenees, common around there, but with a big Saint Bernard-shaped head and double the normal size. Big glowing yellow eyes. I have no idea if it was some freak mutant farm dog, a spirit, a wolf, or what, but I'd like to never see it again. It's been almost 10 years, and I still don't have anything that's somewhat close to an explanation what happened. Then my bestie and me were sleeping over at her grandma's house, and enjoying the newly renovated attic, as it was supposed to become her little teenager apartment. All new furniture with a huge comfy couch and nice clean boards screwed to the wall, all in white pink. Sleepover went just like you would imagine it, with two 15-year-old girls painting nails, watching DVDs, and talking about the hottest gossip at school. It was already like 3 a.m. when we decided to go get some sleep and left the room to sleep in the bed next door. Only a few minutes later we heard a little scratching sound followed by a loud bang, clearly coming from the room we just left. One of the boards that were screwed to the wall was lying on the floor, almost 4 meters away from where it was supposed to be. Not like screw broke and it fell. Nope. Solid 4 meters away from that wall. Almost 2 centimeters deep hole in the ground where the board was laying. The holes in the wall looked like something grabbed that board and pulled it straight out, ripping the wood and concrete it was drilled to. Still getting goosebumps remembering it. Happened to me before on a dark back road to my house. There is no street lights, the road is very curvy, and it was about 2 a.m. She was standing on a bend in the road on the edge, while the cliff behind her was about 100 to 200 feet drop. There are no homes for about 2 miles up the hill. I was driving very slow to make the turn, so I got a good look with my headlights. I make it around the corner and look back, nothing. Creepiest thing ever. White older lady in a white nightgown just staring. I work as an adult novelty store manager with a theater, so please envision the kind of customers I get. I had this regular who was nice enough, and we always exchanged pleasantries and small talk. One day we said goodbye, and as he went to leave he stopped dead in his tracks and came back to the counter. He told me that he ignores it every time, but today it wouldn't let him. So naturally I ask what the hell is he talking about. He proceeds to tell me that there is an older black man who is with me 24/7. He sees him every time I'm in the store. The older black man just stands next to me watching me and smiling. At that point a chill ran up my spine, because no one in that store knows besides my boss that I'm half black and my 65-year-old black father that I was so close to passed in 2014. I said the usual wow and oh my god, so I wouldn't give anything away to see what else he says to see if it's legit. The customer proceeds to tell me that the man, my father, is sad about his kids not doing what he's asked them to do, and one particular child has greatly disappointed him. The man, my father, also wants the customer to tell me how much he loves his wife, even though she's married again. At this point I have tears in my eyes, because how would this man know there's conflict between me and my siblings because of my dad's death? How would this man know my mother is married again? He kept mentioning that he could feel a strong religious pull with my father. My father was a preacher. He told me a bunch of other things and asked if I was pregnant. I told him no, but apparently my next child will have my father's soul according to him. My 2-year-old son looks like my father and loves his favorite songs. I have never seen that man again. My friend and I were sleeping in my parents' room one night when she was over, and it was probably about 3 a.m. Suddenly we hear a sound like a fart from the corner of the room, and distinctly from this one corner. So I ask my friend if she farted, and of course she says no, as it clearly came from that corner. Thinking maybe it's my dogs, as they sometimes sleep in my parents' room, I go and check it out, but realize they're not in the room with us. Okay, so that's weird, I thought, and my friend also said she heard a distinct fart too, so we assumed that maybe we both misheard. Then all of a sudden an unknown caller starts ringing my phone, and I don't answer because at this point I'm freaked the fuck out. After I decline the call I receive a message from an unknown caller with the same area code as the caller who had just called me. The text message is all in Spanish, and me and my friend decide to paste the text into Google Translate, where it proceeds to say, "Did you hear that fart?" Needless to say we never slept in my parents' room again, and we're convinced that we have a Spanish farting ghost in our presence.